I thought today we might talk a bit about microclimate and what on earth that means. G'day folks, Andy here from McDowell Manor. So one of the first things I did when I started gardening was I went and found out that I live in a subtropical zone. So I thought, well, there you go, I know my climate now. And I guess for those in the States, it's probably a bit close to somewhere like Florida. Hot, humid summers, and we get a fair bit of rain, as people have probably seen from various news sources. And you can see my yard is still muddy from the last time we got a bucketing. But your climate zone is really barely scratches the surface. So you really do need to look at microclimate. Now, what that means pretty simply is, take this side. This is the south side of my yard. Remember, I'm in the southern hemisphere. In winter, I get no sun here, hence the dead grass. The house here blocks the sun, so it just can't get over here. Now, what I have found is the aquaponics get a peak of sun on that corner there. It doesn't flourish in winter, but it'll get through. The fruit trees, which you can see I mostly have on this side of the yard, they're big enough that they're okay. They'll get through. As you can see, I've left it now where I really don't grow much else. It's just not going to survive and do well without that sort of sun. The north side of the yard, although it's very small, is the exact opposite. So it gets a lot of sun, which isn't great in summer because I often have to cover things or they just cook. But you can see this is in fact where I plant things along the bottom. Oh look, there's a passion fruit. And I don't have a lot of fruit trees out here, although I have started growing some in these big 100-litre pots, grow bags. So that's a bit of an inkling of your microclimates. When I started gardening, I wouldn't have believed that it would be so different. Just from one side of the yard to the other is completely different. Now I've got similar microclimates out in the building site, which I've shown people before. And the biggest issue out there originally was it's a raised site, so it wasn't holding any of the water. So even though we get a lot of rain, it wasn't keeping it. So that's the building site that I was talking about. You can see it's raised up. That really just would not hold water. And what I did then was I put a swale. I dug a swale in that S-shapes through here with a couple of big pits. Planted the sides with that vetiver grass, and you can see it's now booming for the first time. It took me a very long time to get this going, I've got to say, folks. Don't mind admitting to that. And I guess if you think about it, the logic was I didn't get the microclimate. Now right near that is another one, which is the Verge Garden. I'd call it a footpath garden over here in Australia. The problem here is this big boomer of a tree, so it doesn't get a lot of sun. So the other trouble I've got is that everyone's dogs walk along here, and you can imagine. So what I did was I've planted a lot of turmeric here, a lot of galangal, and I'm about to put a whole lot of ginger in here because they don't mind not having a lot of sunlight. One of the few plants that don't need a lot, and it doesn't matter if the dog piddles on the top of it because I don't eat that anyway. Alright, well hopefully that's given you some understanding of the microclimate and why it's so important to actually have a look, work out what's going on in each part of your garden, because it can be so different. You know, it can be shaded by the house like mine, or under an eave or under a big tree. It can be raised up like that bed you can see there, so it doesn't hold a lot of water. It can be frequently visited by water dragons like this one here. That's obviously one of ours that we look after because it's not at all scared of me. Anyway, that's an aside. Alright folks, well hopefully that's been helpful and you have a good one, eh? See ya!